Hello and welcome back for another video on ARK Survival Ascended. Are you looking for your one-stop shop to tips and tricks on the new Ragnarok Ascended map? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'll be showcasing 50 tips and tricks you need to know to aid you on your journey. As always, I'll be starting with beginners tips and tricks and moving to more advanced tips later in the video. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Kicking things off with a brief introduction to Ragnarok's biomes. Beginning with the northwest, you'll find the jungles, home to many of the typical creatures you'll find roaming any jungles in ARK. A great starter location for all survivors, offering plentiful basic resources and safe base locations. And don't forget to meet up at the Blue Obelisk right down the beach for a beach party. Plenty of these wooden crates of beer left over from the party the night before. Hit them with a pickaxe and you'll find some tasty goodies to get you started on your journey. Moving further north is the iconic Viking Bay, a fairly safe region, as it has more potential base locations than threats. However, some dangerous predators can make their way down from the jungles from time to time. It offers all the basic resources a survivor needs to thrive and survive, and also some rare resources like oil and pearls found in the shallow waters. In the direct central northern section, we have the lava biome, home to an active volcano that will erupt from time to time. Love to see it. Rich with resources and dangerous creatures alike, with plenty important points of interest, including the main Wyvern Trench, where you can net yourself a fertilized egg for one of the 3 poison, fire or lightning Wyvern variants. In the northeast corner lies the Highlands, one of the most iconic biomes on the map and for good reason, offering widespread open plains housing many valuable creatures that you'll be wanting to tame, which does include the new map exclusive creature that is the giant bison. There are so many things to love about this biome, and it will most definitely offer a great starting area for beginners and a wide variety of potential base locations. But beware, you can also find the most dangerous of predators spawning here from time to time. They should, however, be quite easy to avoid due to the open areas. Moving down to the east is the Redwoods. Pretty much does what it says on the tin. It's pretty much just like any other Redwoods you'll find on other maps, and offers the same perks and creatures roaming the area. The usual suspects, have you will. There is also a bunch of beaver dams that spawn in the shallow rivers too. Taking up the central south region is the Scorched Earth biome, and the dunes in the southeast. Ragnarok pays homage to a giant Scorched Earth biome that, when including the mountains and badland areas, makes up around a whopping 25% of the map, so it is a huge area. You'll find all the typical suspects spawning in the dunes and in the Scorched Earth region in the south. Plenty of rare resources to be had here, that's for sure. The southwest corner of the map is made up of more Scorched Earth islands, pretty much offering the same resources and creatures as the southeast. You do, however, have a brand new island well away from the mainland, which offers a good amount of Karkanos spawns, so if you want to tame one of those later on, this is the coordinates to come to. In the central west part of the map lies a giant swamp, where you can expect to find plenty of those swamp-dwelling creatures that you've come to love. It is by far the best swamp in the game if you're looking to tame some beasts like the Baryonyx or the Dinosuchus, as most of the swamp is actually fully open ground, which is known as the Dark Waters. Here you can easily find creatures without having to scout through the very dense trees that all other swamps in the game are known for. A new castle was added to the remaster in the center, where you can also find a bunch of cats spawning on the bottom floor. A little odd, but if you want to tame some feline friends, then this is the place to be. Plentiful swamp-like resources can be found here, including plant species X, rare flowers, and rare mushrooms. Moving east from here, heading inland to the center of the map, will lead you to Central Canyon, which for me is the most iconic biome on Ragnarok, due to its unique look and beauty, offering a plethora of potential base locations, metal scattered all over the cliff tops, and speaking of cliffs, there's many opportunities to turn these cliffs and pillars into a beautiful cliffside resort. And finally, in the direct center of the map lies the snow biomes. We'll focus on the murder snow as it is the most iconic. They did make it a little more accessible to survivors, however it does still range from -6 degrees and drops to a whopping -90 degrees in certain parts, so it is the deadliest biome in the entire game. It is also a hotspot for finding your fertilized ice wyvern eggs, and all of those typical snow biome beauties inhabiting the area. So first, you'll be needing a good starting area, and what better way to start your journey with a nice little care package. Picking the Viking Bay 1 spawn will have you either spawn in front of these wooden crates that have washed up on the beach, and if not, you will have to head slightly north down the beach to make it here to these coordinates. You can make yourself a stone pick, hack at these wooden boxes to gain some metal tools and weapons like the crossbow, arrows, pike, wooden shield, or even swords, giving you the best and easiest start a survivor can ask for. If say you want to begin your journey in the Highlands, which is highly recommended resources, picking Highlands North is a great starter location. You will find dead whale carcasses all down the beach when heading further north from here. You can harvest these for easy sport meat, hide, keratin, and oil. There is loads of these dead whales scattered all around the beaches and shallow ocean next to the beach all around the Highlands. While you're at it, you may as well tame one of the best starter tames on the map, which is of course none other than the Equus. And these rock carrot bushes is our key to success. If you keep heading up further inland towards the southeast, you can come to these coordinates and get yourself some rock carrot crops. They are everywhere in this area, and you will keep finding more the more you head inland. But they are extremely difficult to spot, so I highly recommend using the grass.size scale command. This way you can see them as clear as daylight. Once leveling up to level 10, and with your rock carrot in your final hotbar slot, all you need to do now is find yourself an Equus, which are extremely common spawns in the Highlands. Sneakily walk up behind it, shove a carrot up its bum, jump on to begin the taming process, and press the use key whenever it starts to buck, which is E on PC, Y on Xbox, or triangle on PlayStation. And it's as simple as that. You just have to hope it doesn't run into any dangerous creatures, but the Highlands is relatively beginner friendly for the most part. With your Equus, you could easily tame up a decent level Pteranodon, which is also pretty common in the Highlands. And if you're ballsy enough, you can trap a Bison in an enclosure, where your Equus can aid you in knocking one of those out too. If it begins getting bloody, you may have to switch to Tranks instead, but I was able to knock out this level 50 relatively easy. You can't saddle it up until level 50, but they come in very handy for their milk. After taming a few bison, you now have an exceptional berry harvester, and of course bison milk on demand. So once you have a bunch of females and get them mating with the males, we can pop out some baby bison. You'll then have the option to milk the females once a baby has been born, which appears to have a cooldown of 1 hour. The milk does have a number of valuable uses. You can feed it to baby wyverns or bison to fill their food levels. It also acts as a substitute to wyvern milk when caring for babies that are craving it. After imprinting a baby wyvern with bison milk, they will instantly mature by 10%, which is pretty big in the game. When consumed by the player, it will extend the spoil timer on consumables like soups, which does not stack by the way. It has a very quick spoil timer of 30 minutes and cannot be refrigerated. However, it can be placed inside a preserving bin to increase the spoil timer to 5 hours. Just by having a Pteranodon, you can easily snatch a wyvern egg if you wanted to, as there is a few egg spawns close to the Highlands. I don't usually do this myself, as I don't really feel the need to rush to get a wyvern, as I usually play on pretty slow breeding rates, so it would take me days to mature one anyway. So I prefer to grab wyvern eggs freely with a griffin later on, so I usually just go straight for taming a griffin. You can find them spawning in a number of locations in the center of the map. These two spots are usually the best for me. Bait them into a trap and close them in, which is really easy to do, especially if you're using a godly trap like this one. You will need a good amount of trank arrows to put one down depending on its level, and can easily be tamed on raw prime meat or raw mutton. And if you're looking for a perfect griffin trap, then look no further, as Captain Fatdog has done it again and came in clutch with this beautiful, simple yet cost efficient trap. Link will be in the description of the video and in a pinned comment. Don't forget to check out his other trap builds too. The man is an absolute genius. Moving back to the griffin, and on the subject of raw mutton, if you are looking for a good spot to find it, well, we move back to the Highlands in the northeast. There are tons of ovis that spawn here very commonly. It is by far the best place to find sheep over any other map in ARK. The griffin is well known for its fast flying and aerial combat ability. Once tamed, it does not require a saddle to ride and does have 2 seats, one for the rider and 1 passenger seat, where the rider and the passenger can wield their weapons when mounted, which makes the griffin a great taming aid for solo players. With a decent flying speed, however, will become far quicker than most when diving and swooping through the air like you just don't care. It does have relatively strong stats across the board, but of course it has no armor protection. Its health, however, can be leveled to quite a high amount. Its bite attack deals average damage, however it does have 2 extremely powerful aerial attacks. It can dive straight down to perform a ground pound that deals 3 times its melee damage, but its deadliest attack is when you press the attack button during its dive and swoop, and when at full acceleration could deal up to a whopping 10 times its base melee damage. And once you get the hang of it, you can even hit the target 2 or 3 times mid-dive, therefore outputting a lot of damage quickly. Griffins can now breed, meaning you can imprint them, mutate them, and make them into a whole different beast. I did also want to point out that crafting up a raft to explore Ragnarok is also a great idea. I could be wrong, but I don't believe the Leeds Sickfees even spawns on this map at all, or at least none show up on my dino finder, so either that or they are extremely rare, so it could be a good time to shine for all those pirates out there. We can now sail the seas in peace and quiet. Ragnarok does have a much higher level of creatures that naturally spawn in the wild. It's by far the best map to find high levels of anything. This does however mean it could be more challenging for newer players when starting out, but honestly it's so much more beneficial in the long run. The center map is pretty good also, but you have the perk of many DLC creatures spawning on Rag, so it will be the go-to map to visit for those high levels. Most notably, it is the best map to find high level Carcharodontosaurus and Gigas, because they are far more common on Ragnarok than any other map in ARK. Early game crystal is a bit of a problem on Rag, however here's a couple of decent spots I like to visit when needing some. You will need a flyer to get to these spots. Although a little on the cold side, the Bear Cave and the entrance to the Frozen Dungeon Cave is a great spot for a ton of crystal. You can also grab a good amount of oil in this location too. The bears do have a small aggro range, so you should be able to easily avoid them. There is a lot here depending on how long you can stick around the area for. There are also a number of entrances to this cave, but this one here is located at 31.1 latitude, 35.6 longitude, and has crystal right at the entrance. Other spots, believe it or not, were quite hard to find. Here's a little cliff spot I found in the northwest jungle, offering a small amount of crystal, located at 22.1 latitude, 22.7 longitude. And finally this spot here on the new Highlands Island up on the mountain. Quite a lot here in this location, located at 11.9 latitude, 92.7 longitude. I have given a small guide on how to use waypoints before in these types of videos, but I think it's super important to add it here too, just in case people don't know how to use it. It will aid you in finding locations extremely easily, especially for finding a lot of the spots I will give coordinates to during the video. So to use the waypoint tracker system, you'll need to go into your inventory, navigate to the minimap tab at the top, then click waypoints at the bottom. You can then click add waypoint. If looking for a location with the coordinates, you can type in the latitude and the longitude, name your waypoint so you know what it is, then click add waypoint. Go back to your map and click on the waypoints and it will show any waypoints you have added to the map. You can then click it to track it and it will then be visible on screen. Are you looking for some black pearls right at the early game? Maybe you've transferred in from another map and just want to grab some and leave. When in the Viking Bay area, you can come to this location around 21.8 latitude, 33.4 longitude. There's a small island in the bay and I've just parked my raft here, and it is a great spot for some early game rare resources. You can dive into the water below from here and you'll find a shipwreck. There is a ton of Eurypterids that spawn here, although extremely deadly if you get too close. They are super easy to kill with a crossbow and will not be able to attack you unless you swim down to the ocean bed. When killed, their bodies float upward, making them easy to harvest for some black pearls, silica pearls, oil and chitin, which is amazing for the early game. Plus, once you clear them out, there's plenty of black pearl clams here for you to pick up too. Only thing you need to look out for is your own oxygen, stamina and some larger threats like the Megalodon. Using a Therizino later down the line can also be useful for gathering these resources, especially if you live nearby. Everyone needs oil and fertilizer throughout the game, so come get your dung beetles. They spawn all over the volcanic biome and the dunes. Personally, I prefer going for one in the dunes. It's a wide open area and it's easy to avoid threats for the most part. Stock up on poop and spoiled meat, stick it in your final hotbar slot, shove it up its bum to tame. When back at base, throw it in a cage and set it to wander. You will then have the best passive oil and fertilizer farm in the game. The setting for auto collecting feces should already be turned on via its radial menu, and it will pick up poop that you'll creatures drop and convert it to oil and fertilizer over time. Beaver dams can be found near bodies of water in specific locations dotted around the map, and can be looted for substantial amounts of wood and cementing paste, and small amounts of silica pearls, rare flowers and rare mushrooms. It is important to take all items out of the dam to despawn it, to allow for more dams to respawn. All beavers in the area will become aggressive to you once you access any of their dams. Using a wyvern to loot these quickly is a great method, as you can park right next to the dams, access and take the items out without the beavers being able to hit you for the most part. Here are all the beaver dam locations, beginning with the jungles at 24.2 latitude, 42.8 longitude, 28.3 latitude, 41.3 longitude, 32.3 latitude, 43.7 longitude, 63.5 latitude, 36.2 longitude, in this open area near the green obelisk, 38 latitude, 76.6 longitude in the redwoods, and finally 13.3 latitude, 85.8 longitude, located on the new Highlands Island in the northeast. This is something so simple, but something that took me ages to figure out when they released the update where you can install and uninstall certain DLC maps to save space. Anyway, there are many Scorched Earth creatures, resources, and engrams that are included with Ragnarok, and if you don't have the Scorched Earth DLC installed, then you won't be able to unlock any of the engrams. So if you also had this issue like me, and was staring at your computer screen looking all perplexed, then this is what you need to do to fix it. Everybody loves bullets, but everybody hates burning wood into charcoal. So come get your charcoal trees found everywhere in the volcanic biome. Fly a wyvern over here and flap, flap, flap away to see yourself becoming rich with charcoal in a matter of minutes. But even if you don't have a wyvern, I found that the metal pick works better, to be honest, and it even harvests more than the chainsaw too. Speaking of bullets, we need tons of flint to make them. The best way for this is to tame up a Fasolasuchus, which you can find spawning throughout the entirety of the sand dunes in the bottom right corner of the map. Once tamed, find a spot with many rocks to your liking and go to town. This spot here is my personal favourite, which I'm dubbing the Desert Scar. There's so many rocks at the base, and many at the top of the scar if that doesn't tickle your fancy. Even in the water, you have tons of the river rocks too. The Fasola will get kicked out of its burrow on occasion, but you can still dive in and out of the ground to harvest the rocks in the water, and from just heading north or south up and down the scar, you'll have so much flint you won't know what to do with it. So you need to pump it up for excessive amounts of oil? Well, here's a few oil pump locations to satisfy your needs. We have this lovely spot of 3 veins right above Viking Bay in the snow biome, located at 31.6 latitude, 34.5 longitude, right at the tippity top of the mountain here in the Scorched Earth biome, located at 66.4 latitude, 54.9 longitude. In the south at the top of this small mountain close by to the Wyvern Cave, located at 81.8 latitude, 39.7 longitude, and in the bottom right corner of the map in the dunes, having 4 right alongside each other, located at 82.1 latitude, 80.3 longitude. Organic polymer plants now have been added to Ragnarok. There's a great bunch of locations to find them, but I'll show some of my favorites real quick. You can find a bunch inside the cave in Viking Bay, located at 22.7 latitude, 30.7 longitude. A completely hostile-free cave, so it's a really good spot for it. If you are wanting much more, the best spot is by far the Wyvern Cave in the south, located at 69.6 latitude, 42.4 longitude. Of course, you will most likely have to deal with the nasty neighbors of wyverns and megalania, but the amount you can harvest here will be crazy. The bushes can be harvested by hand, bettered by a sickle, but the best creature for harvesting them is the dire bear. Another great source of chitin and polymer is through killing and harvesting the mantis or the carcanos. The mantis is by far the best for me, as it spawns more commonly and is far more accessible, spawning throughout the entirety of the volcanic biome and also the dunes on Scorched Earth. The dunes for me is the best spot. You can either kill off the wild ones and harvest the bodies, or tame up a male and a bunch of females, breed them up, kill them off and cut them up with a chainsaw for the best efficiency. The Ice Wyvern's inventory now acts as a portable refrigerator, and even works better than one, and also the tech feeding trough. Plus you can preserve items that you cannot normally place inside a refrigerator, including wyvern milk and bison milk. Sadly, I was a little disappointed that it cannot extend the spoil timer of organic polymer, because that would have been a dream come true. Speaking of the Ice Wyvern, you'll be wanting to know where to find their nest for some fertilized eggs. Here's a few common spawn locations for the nests. I've almost always found a nest spawning in these spots every single time. 46.3 latitude, 52.6 longitude, 46.3 latitude, 31.4 longitude, and the final spot, which is the best spot to find 2 nest spawns right next to each other, which is at the peak near the snow biome near Vikings Bay, located at 34 latitude, 37.7 longitude. There are a few more nest spawns on the map, however I rarely find nests spawning in those spots, so these are the more consistent spawns. While here in this double nest spawn location, just like some rock drake nests and eggs on Aberration, these nests and wyverns have a tendency to instantly respawn. You'll need to have a means of killing off the wyverns quickly so that you can easily grab the egg. Anything strong like a Rex, a Giga, or a Karka parked a little away from the nest will do the job. Not too close to the nest spawn though, as I found that the nest doesn't respawn if you park your killing machine too close to the spawn. Anyway, grab the egg, then fly out a render distance of the nest spawn. Upon flying back, you will be met with 2 fresh spawns of ice wyverns, and a nest will always respawn with them. You can rinse and repeat this process until you find the level of egg you desire. I did try this out with other nests, and this one was the only spot that seemed to work in this way. It's also a pretty decent XP farm too. Are you looking for a massive amount of metal all in one location, where most of it is completely hostile free? Well, look to the north and head up to this location on the map. I really did have to go into GCM for this one, as there's so much to show off, it wouldn't really be possible to quickly do it without GCM. You will spot many rocky islands and cliffs in the shallow waters. Almost every rock pillar or formation of rocks here is covered in metal from top to bottom. Admittedly, a little bit of a challenge to farm some of the nodes on the side of the cliffs. There's so much here, I can safely say there's no better spot to farm metal, or at least on land. As maybe land gathering isn't your thing and you prefer to gather a shed ton of metal in the deep ocean. While moving slightly up north from the previous metal location on land, you can come to around this location on the map, and there is ridiculous amounts of metal clusters all around this area. It almost feels never ending. If you have yourself a donkey, this is probably the go-to spot for farming metal. I honestly haven't found any other spots in the ocean that are even remotely close to the quantity and quality of this one. Swimming a little further down towards the east, you will find this lit up crystal-like trench, and once again it is covered in metal throughout, and also a little bit of crystal and black pearl clams too if you're keen like Sean Bean. We all love high quality loot, and the best source of quick and easy loot is from the 5 blue and yellow loot crates that spawn in the first section of the frozen dungeon artifact cave. The first entrance can be flown into, which is located at 31 latitude, 37.8 longitude. Back in ASE, I believe this entrance would kick the rider off when flown into. However, as of now, it does seem to allow you to fly into this entrance when playing a server that disables cave flying, which is pretty nice. The second entrance is located within this waterfall, which is found in the frozen bear cave located at 31.3 latitude, 33.7 longitude. This is the best entrance for me, as you can enter with a wide variety of small to medium land creatures. The two entrances will lead you into the first giant room, where you will find a nice selection of 5 blue and yellow crates. You can visit this section without having to enter the main cave if you want to, for some quick and easy loot. All crates are very close together and are easily spotted when using a flyer, or can easily be navigated to and from on foot also. The only dangers here in this first section are the high level dire bears, but they do have a very small aggro range, so you should be able to easily avoid them. You can find all sorts of tasty loot from these crates: flak armor, crossbows, long neck rifles, and many other useful weapons, saddle and armor to aid you on your journey. The Ragnarok treasure chests are a great way to farm some quick and easy loot. You can find one in Viking Bay, next to the shipwreck in the shallow water. You do have to be level 80 to open these. Plenty of those nasty stingy sea scorpions will be in the area, so you will need a means of dealing with those, unless you want to go for a cheeky nap attack. The chest is located at around 22.1 latitude, 33.6 longitude. It does also spawn in a few other locations around this shipwreck, but the spots are all really close together, so it shouldn't be too difficult to find once you get here. These crates only tend to drop one item, but the loot is typically very high quality. I have found a few Ascendant fabricated sniper rifles in these, so they are worth checking out if you're in the area. And yes, they do also drop gas masks, which is a very rare blueprint to find in this game, believe it or not. A second chest is rumored to spawn away from the shipwreck. I have never personally found this one myself. I'm just going off of what other people have said, but if you're in the area, it can potentially be located at 33.4 latitude, 36.4 longitude, in a small cave in the snow biome above Viking Bay. I've probably looked at this location 30 times and it's never been there. However, the Viking Bay shipwreck chest does tend to respawn every 45 minutes, so it's always going to be worth checking it out. While on the subject of easy loot, let's showcase the 5 desert drop locations. Used to be one of the best open world crate farms in the game back in ASE. However, in ASA, the loot of these and deep sea loot crates is nowhere near as good as it used to be. You can still, however, find some decent loot. You can find flak armor, pump action shotties, and a variety of other weapons, saddles, and armor. There are 5 locations in total, found at 79.7 latitude, 51.9 longitude, 83.9 latitude, 77 longitude, 70.4 latitude, 76.5 longitude, 63.2 latitude, 78.1 longitude, and the final crate located at 59.7 latitude, 76.5 longitude. All in close proximity to one another, but only 4 crates will spawn at a time, so they are really quick to run, and you'll have a good chance of finding a crate or 4 depending on how busy the server is. And the crates will roughly take around 45 minutes to respawn. A good way to farm sap is looking for these types of trees in the scorched earth biome. They have furry trunks and are typically quite small, but if you come to this location on the map, this is the same spot where we gathered the flint with the Fasolasuchus, but above the scar instead. They are plentiful here and are pretty much the only types of tree in the area for miles. Not all seem to give sap, which is odd, but using the chainsaw is the best method of harvesting it. However, the best way to farm sap is passively, through the means of a tree sap tap. You will need to visit the redwoods biome to place these down onto one of the giant trees. Once attached to a tree, it will roughly produce 1 sap every 10 minutes and will cap out at 30, so it's best to whack a few down and come back later to take it out so they can begin producing more. Silica pearls are plentiful on Ragnarok, however the best spot to farm a ton is in a very beginner-friendly location, believe it or not. Equip yourself with a scuba tank and bring an anglerfish to Viking Bay at around 21.9 latitude, 33.2 longitude. This is the exact same spot where the shipwreck party of sea scorpions from earlier in the video is at. You want to dive straight down from here and you will find a tunnel which is another entrance to the carnivorous caverns. And this entire tunnel is littered with hundreds of silica pearls. Nothing really seems to spawn down here other than Karkanos a bit later down the tunnel, so it is pretty safe for the most part. There are 2 awesome ways to gather rare mushrooms on Ragnarok. The old faithful swamp trees that look like this can be found everywhere in the swamp located at the west side of the map. There is a ton of trees here. Bring a Therizino pumped in power harvesting and you'll be well away. By far the best method is if you come to around 21.9 latitude, 42.1 longitude, and we're in the small swamp below the castle. And you want to jump on your Therizino, which is pumped into delicate harvesting this time, and head into the cave, which is an entrance to the carnivorous caverns, which is also an artifact cave. You won't have to go too far at all, and you will come to a large cluster of these glowing green mushrooms. It is actually best to park your ferry on top of the mushrooms, dismount and let it go to town. It harvests unique resources from bushes much more efficiently when unmounted. It harvested just under 60 rare mushrooms, and that is just from 1 bush on 1 times harvesting. And there is thousands of bushes in this cave, so you could farm probably hundreds of thousands of mushrooms in this cave alone, depending on how far you want to venture in. This leads us on perfectly to rare flowers. Starting off in the same cave as the previous spot for the rare mushrooms, you will come across this type of plant right next to those mushrooms. And just do the exact same thing, park your ferry down next to the bushes, and it will go to town once again, harvesting loads of rare flowers. Moving further into the cave, you'll come across this type of plant. If you head to around 22.7 latitude, 43.4 longitude, there is a bunch in this location. It harvests rare flowers much better from these plants than it does when harvesting the rare mushroom bushes. So you can treat yourself to riding your ferry on this one. And as you can see, there is a ton in this area, almost 1,000 collected in just a minute. Boosh! Another good spot for rare flowers is the frozen dungeon entrance. Head through the waterfall and you can follow the path to find a load more of these blue bushes for a good amount of rare flowers. The ferry does fit into the cave, however it cannot exit through this path as there is some sort of lip that the ferry can't get over, so you will have to cry upon it to get it back out. And finally we head over to the swamp, this time looking for these pretty little blue flowers. You can find a load in this area roughly around 37.5 latitude, 19 longitude. They can be picked up by hand to guarantee yourself a rare flower or 2, but of course the ferry reigns supreme. You'll also find plenty of silk plants in the area too, and also some plant species X, if any of those tickle your fancy while you're getting rich with rare flowers. Moving on to some popular taming hotspots for some of the most beneficial creatures you can tame in the game. The giant queen bee can be an absolute nightmare to tame. However, if you come to the open grassland area at the base of the castle of the swamp, you can find many giant queen bees roaming. Well, not exactly roaming, as these 2 spots seem to spawn like 3 or 4 stuck inside each other. They do begin to roam once you get close enough though. These 2 spots spawn bees like this all the time as of now, making taming one extremely easy once you have the appropriate equipment to do so. You can come to this location and tame like 5 in just a few minutes. It's a crazy good spot. This is probably unintended, but I hope it stays this way forever as I hate taming these things. My favourite spot to find a Therizino is if you come to the west side of the central canyon, roughly within this highlighted area on the map. They can spawn on the grassy areas right at the base of the canyon, but are found more commonly in the open jungle areas above the canyon, which is right below the spiral rock plateau that is known as Alpha Pillar. They are super easy to spot, super common, so I like to fly circles around this pillar and the lower canyon, killing off all the low levels and wait for more to respawn. It will not take you long to find a high level in doing so. The Thylacoleo is is quite possibly one of the most popular battle mounts in the game, but can typically be a little difficult to find as they tend to find you rather than you find them. Those pesky tree huggers. However, the highlighted area in the south is the place to be. They will spawn here roaming around on the ground, making them very easy to spot and much easier to tame. And there are loads that spawn in this area. Everybody loves shoulder pets and everybody loves light pets from Aberration. Luckily for us, a few light pets will appear on Ragnarok. You'll need to head over to this location on the map. Coordinates are 63.6 latitude, 44.3 longitude. This is where you'll find the Memorial Museum ruin. Here there are a variety of peaceful creatures roaming the compound, from aberrant dodos, Beelzebufo, and most notably the Shinehorn. Oh, so cute. But of course, there's always one party pooper. Also, yes, that is my name on the wall in the background. I still can't believe I've been engraved onto a wall on one of my favorite maps in ARK. How cool is that? So big shout out to the creators for that one. Anyway, sadly there is currently no way to naturally harvest aberrant mushrooms or plant species dead to tame them efficiently, but if you are a monster you can kill the parents for the greater good and claim the babies to tame yourself your very own cute little Shinehorn. On most maps in ARK, Spinos are an absolute nightmare to find, but they are very common on Ragnarok. If you head to the center of the central canyon at the base where all the rivers and lakes lie, then you will have absolutely no problem in finding a bunch. A great location to tame high levels if you're into the Spino, or just kill them off to stock up on sales, or for XP, as the Spino does give a good amount of it. Speaking of XP, there are two ways I like to level when at the mid or later stages of the game. Firstly, and potentially the best method, is heading to the dunes in the bottom right corner of the map. The Deathworm rarely spawns here, so those are always a bonus to find. However, the Titanosaur seems to be a very common spawn here. Well, I say common, but what I really mean is that one is usually here roaming around the dunes whenever I visit the area, and that's common enough for me. A perfect time for your Thyla to shine, bleeding their health down and finishing them off with the weapon of your choice to reward your survivor with all that tasty XP. The Lightning Wyvern is always my go-to wyvern due to its range and devastating lightning breath attack. It is the best wyvern for killing other wyverns, which are another great source of XP. You could steal a wyvern egg, cluster up a bunch of wyverns, pull in your view to the furthest right or left of your screen while sprinting and angling the breath attack. We'll see you obliterate any wyvern that isn't a lightning variant. Sadly, this strategy doesn't work very well at all on servers, or at least it doesn't on my rented server, as it seems the hit registration is pretty much non-existent, which is such a shame. It does work great in single player though. To deal with lightning wyverns, have one follow you, cancel your wyvern sprint, let it use its breath attack and pull the brakes by holding S on mouse and keyboard or pulling the analog stick down on controller. While it's flying at you using its breath attack, you can chomp upward and usually get a few bites in before it flies over you, where you can then sprint forward and rinse and repeat the process to kill it. This way it can barely hit you with its bite attacks. The otter in my eyes is one of the most valuable shoulder pets you can own on Ragnarok, due to the very cold temperatures of the map. The otter provides a stacking insulation effect, roughly around 82 hypo and 38 hypothermic protection. This can be improved by leveling its melee stat, so they will keep you warm in those super cold places. Added to this, if you do have enough of them, they can even incubate fertilized eggs, and being as they are a shoulder pet, they receive 50% weight reduction for anything inside their inventory when on the player's shoulder, allowing you to carry many more items. They also have the unique ability of being the only creature in the entire game that can carry more than one of the same artifact inside their inventory, something even a player cannot do, which is an absolute lifesaver for solo players, especially useful for running the Life's Labyrinth puzzle cave, as it is the most painful cave to run due to holding 4 different artifacts. The otter will make your life a whole lot easier when running this cave, so you probably want to know where to find some artifacts. The artifact of the Devourer is found in the open world in the deep ocean. It is located at 47.1 latitude, 2.5 longitude. It is guarded by swarms of Tusos, so you'll need to bring a strong mount like the Dinosuchus to kill them off. Killing the Tusos will also drop black pearls and absorbent substrate, so it's a great location to farm these resources too. Moving on to Artifact of the Strong, we return to the Wyvern Cave in the south, which gives me a perfect time to showcase that you can find up to 3 red and yellow loot crates that spawn in the cavern. These crates will drop some serious high quality loot, so it's always worth your time just to visit this cave for these alone. You will find the Artifact of the Strong in the ruins at the back of the cavern, which is located at 62.8 latitude, 42.1 longitude. Artifact of the Pack is found in the Frozen Dungeon Cave. The entrances and the first section of the cave has already been mentioned a few times during this video, but you'll be here for the real deal this time. After making your way to the main entrance inside, you'll be met with very cold temperatures and long icy tunnels filled with ice worms ready to ambush you at every corner. Taking a left at the first fork of paths will see you leaving no stone left unturned, finding all the red and yellow loot crates within. Taking a right at the second fork of paths to grab more loot and double back on yourself to return to the final path leading you to the giant waterfall, where you will drop down and then take on the Iceworm Queen mini-boss. Once defeated, 4 red loot crates will spawn in the cavern. This cave is one of the best for farming loot on the map. Making your way to the back of the arena, you will find another tunnel that leads you to the artifact of the pack, which is located at 33.6 latitude, 43.4 longitude. Moving on to the jungle dungeon. Once again, numerous entrances, but this one is the best for me to quickly run through. Once tiptoeing your way past the first booby trap, you can jump and grapple straight through the high ground, maybe dropping down every so often to loot the odd blue and green loot crate, testing your balance over a tight rope thin vine to the next section of the cave, where grappling hooks will be your best friend and red and yellow loot crates can be found throughout. Finally making your way to the tippity top of the stairwell, descending down the stairs where you'll grapple over to the artifact of the hunter located at 21.5 latitude, 27.2 longitude. You can choose to leave the cave or move through the crystal-filled narrow path and enter the dungeon of the lava golem, an extremely painful boss to beat, as there's no Velonosaurs on this map and you'd need an excessive amount of rockets to kill it. 260 rockets and 13 launchers to be exact, if dealing 250 damage per shot. So yeah, the Pyromane is kinda pay to win on this one. It can kill the golem extremely quickly and easily. No loot on the golem's corpse for the win as of now, but you will be rewarded with 4 red loot crates that spawn in the arena. Dropping down into the depths of Ragnarok, we have the Carnivorous Caverns, a giant mazy-like cave with numerous different entrances. 2 artifacts reside in this cave. The Cunning, which is very well hidden, where you will need to ascend through a vertical tunnel, with most likely grappling hooks being your best friend on this one, located at 20.3 latitude, 46 longitude. The Immune artifact is found at the opposite side of the cavern, deep down through some windy paths, so it can be quite easy to get lost in this cave. However, coordinates and waypoints are your best friend if you really are struggling. Located at 23.7 latitude, 44.6 longitude. And oh my days, the final artifact cave, which is none other than the Life's Labyrinth. Single-handedly the most painful artifact cave to run in the game, and it would be impossible to cover it in detail here in this video. It would be an understatement in saying that you need to be well prepared for this one. With booby traps around every corner and loot crates aplenty, it does sound very tempting for those dedicated loot goblins, but even I wouldn't run this cave for loot, and I have loot on the mind 24/7. I will give a few tips nonetheless. The cave is filled with jump puzzles, booby traps, and pressure plates to trigger said traps. You can usually spot these a mile off as they stick out like a sore thumb. Literally, the raised up floor tiles will set off the traps, so you need to avoid stepping on those. In the first room, you will see a statue of a Viking ship. This is a ship known as a Drakar, which is the word you need to spell out by pressing the buttons scattered all around the room and down the stairs in the basement. A button is hidden behind a stack of crates, which will open a sliding door to the final letter. Once pressed, you can run back up the stairs to find that the Drakar statue has opened sesame for you to enter the cave. The room with the main fire trap, you will need to be crouching the entire time to get through this one, because if you don't, you will be on the menu tonight served up as some fried crispy meat on a plate. To open these doors, hit the button on the left in the center of the room, traverse into the opposite side of the room to hit that button, then hit the final button on the statue in the middle, which will open both doors where, well, you can then pick your poison. Sadly, there's no way to run this cave once and retrieve all artifacts in one go due to having to run 2 painful paths where there's no turning back. The artifact of the Clever can be found down the right path at 48 latitude, 78.6 longitude. The artifact of the Massive and Devious are in the final section of the cave after defeating the Ghost Direwolf and the Ghost Direbear mini-bosses, located at 49 latitude, 79.5 longitude. Rerunning the cave through the left path at some point will lead you to the artifact of the Skylord, located at 47.7 latitude, 78.9 longitude. After your pain and suffering is over, you can make it over the final hurdle and to the main boss fight, Noon Attack, a formidable ice wyvern boss. It will summon ice worm minions from time to time that have around 10 to 15k health, depending on what difficulty you are running. Creatures I would recommend for this fight, although not necessary, a Daedalon can be handy for harder difficulties for healing support, a UT for buffing your army's damage and damage resistance. For damage dealers, I like to to use an army of Therizinos, Pyromanes, or the Dinosuchus. The Gigabyte bleed does work on the boss for me, and I was reassured that this does also work on official servers, but apparently it all depends on the lag or something like that, which is the deciding factor of whether it works or not. Anyway, you won't find a better powerhouse than the Dinosuchus, that's for sure. With the 3 difficulties offering a good challenge, the alpha has a whopping 1.2 million health, which is a crazy amount. You will be rewarded for your efforts with a nice amount of element on each difficulty, a trophy, and a new boss flag. Plus, of course, unlocking some well-deserved techgrams, which unlocks the same techgrams as the original Manticore Dragon fight from ASE, as well as the tech sword, light, and shield. And that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it helpful. And if you did, please don't forget to like, comment, share around, and subscribe for more. I'd really appreciate it. And if you did have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to reply to them to the best of my ability. And if you're looking for more Ragnarok Ascended related videos, please do check the pinned comment in this video, links in the description, and there's also 2 videos on screen right now that I highly recommend checking out. Hope you're all having a great week and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.